So everybody, welcome back to RecruitingU, where we really get strategic about campus recruiting. Super excited to have our guest on as we unveil the shiny new studio. Kristen, welcome. Now, before we get into the introductions, because I'm sure our listeners are kind of dying to hear a little bit about what you've got prepared and everything like that, we like to start off the podcast with a really irrelevant, dumb fun fact, if you will. So, the only word in the English language that ends in MT is the word dreamt. A little fun fact. So as our listeners are kind of pondering on that, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit of background into you, why campus recruiting, and also share a little bit about something that your friends or colleagues wouldn't necessarily know about you.
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me, Rashad. I'm excited to be here, hopefully share some insights. Kristen Garbarino, currently Intern Program Manager at SAS. Our global headquarters is based in Cary, North Carolina, just outside of Raleigh. Manage an intern program of about 280 interns typically on an annual basis, and have been in kind of the HR college recruiting space for about 9 years now. And when I think about my career and the days that I've gotten super excited to get out of bed every morning is when I get to interact with students and connect them with their passions. Meeting our interns on day one at the start of the program and seeing them grow and develop is just so rewarding and phenomenal. So that's why I've been in this kind of industry and career. And a fun fact about me that maybe my colleagues or peers don't know, one time I went bungee jumping in the Swiss Alps, and it was awesome. I'm glad I did it. We were 450 feet up in the air on a gondola, cable car, over a lake, and you jumped out, and it was absolutely the scariest thing I've ever done. I don't think anyone could pay me to do it again, but really glad I took the opportunity.
Dang, now I know. I don't know if you classify yourself as an adrenaline junkie, but I feel like you're like probably really amped as you probably touch ground. That's awesome. So with that being said, let's get into it, right? I think we're really excited in the scenario that I think a lot of recruiters right now are finding themselves in, intern program managers, is my boss just came to me. Thankfully, we are still continuing on with our internship program, but he said, Rashad, I want you to take this thing virtual. And I'm like, okay, sure. Kind of panicking on the inside because I had no idea what to do. So what am I doing? How do I get this thing started to make sure that we're really creating an awesome internship program, but everything's got to be virtual now?
Great question. It's interesting you ask that and set it up that way, because that's kind of how I was feeling about 5 weeks ago. In March, when our company did decide virtual is going to be the best option just due to the unknowns with COVID-19. So by all means, I do not have it all figured out. But the things I want to talk through would be, I think, best case scenario, and then maybe some options B, different scenarios if you don't have those options. And I'll share a little bit about what we've done with our intern program too. When I think about starting out to collect some ideas to be able to present to your leadership team for recommendations, because ultimately you're going to want to get their buy-in on your plan, is think about your network. So connecting with, local companies in your geography, other companies in your industry. So it's time to kind of work that network and know that good brainstorming doesn't happen alone. I was really fortunate that we got a weekly call going with about 10 to 12 other organizations in the Raleigh-Durham area. That included some other tech companies, other industries. And we all just said, hey, we're going through this together. What ideas are you guys moving forward on? What's working for you? And have really kept a close network to share best practices, knowing that we're all going through the same thing and we really have the same end goal, is that we want to be able to move forward with our internships and make it a best-in-class experience virtually. So that would kind of be my recommendation for a first step, is doing that benchmarking. There's also too just a lot of great research and other resources out there kind of in the university recruiting space. We've been fortunate to be connected with some research companies that have been doing surveys with students on a weekly basis, getting a pulse from what anxieties do students have, what information do they need, what communications would be helpful for them throughout this time. So really understanding kind of what the market survey is saying. So finally, once you've kind of collected some facts, some thoughts on your plan, next steps, getting that buy-in from your leadership and doing that as quickly as possible, right? So you can move forward with the plan and communicate the plan to students and managers. So developing that close partnership, whether it's with your HR leadership that really has oversight, of the intern program, and that's how it is in my company, but also to getting buy-in from, the business leaders that are actually going to have interns in their departments on their teams. Fully understanding with them, can the project work actually be done virtually and successfully? Do we have all the resources and the right managers in place to enable these students to onboard virtually? Think about it, if you're in a manager's shoes, managers are at home, maybe they've got numerous kids at home, they're already trying to manage their teams virtually for the first time. Do they feel like they can take on this student that they've never even met and get them up to skill? So we kind of went through a review process to figure that out and determine that majority of our positions, can be done virtually. And so fortunate. I think not every company is going to be in that situation. And maybe if that is the case, an alternative solution could be thinking about some educational or training opportunities to offer to interns. Maybe it's a 8-week-long project that interns could work on, and you've got a subset of managers that are willing to help with that kind of component of internship. So offering some type of alternative solution so that they still get an experience with your company, they still get to learn and grow.
Well, I was just going to say, the first part actually was like a pretty big surprise to me, that like you gathered everybody together, and we kind of think about competitors, right, in the business landscape, but you're so right, everybody's going through the same thing. So to be willing to kind of share some ideas there. I mean, did the conversation flow itself naturally? Because I envision for a company like us that's a little bit smaller, talking to a company like yourself where you're managing 280 interns, the scope of the problems, at least gut feeling tells me it's a lot different. But did you not find that to be the case when you're in that roundtable conversation?
Yeah, so we did send out, I definitely can't take credit for this. My manager is so well connected in the area. She found herself just naturally reaching out to some of her peers and realized, okay, there's some opportunity to actually get on the call and kind of have a set agenda. So the committee did send out a survey to understand, okay, what points would be helpful to discuss on the call so that we use our time effectively. We found that we were able, for the most part, to share helpful information that was helpful for everyone. I think there's definitely some organizations on the call that were in different positions. For example, for whatever reason, for security and IT purposes, one company did share that they weren't going to be able to deploy laptops. So they were looking at alternative solutions for that if interns were going to be able to do the internship from their, own hardware PCs.
Man, that's you talk about pushing a boulder up a mountain if you can't deploy laptops, and you gotta come up with something creatively. Thankfully, we're not in that boat. But talking about the actual internship experience, right? We can talk about productivity, and I think yes, there are going to be certain inherent challenges that come with that. But I also want to make sure that our interns have an amazing experience, and all that special sauce that went into the company and rubbing shoulders with the people that you get to meet. I mean, this is a really vital time for a lot of students trying to enter the workforce for the first time. So like, how do you create a culture? Like, what are some things that you and your team have kind of discussed to make sure that still remains intact?
Yeah, that's super important, and definitely a lot of brainstorming is going into that. We're still getting that finalized, but a few things that we've got on the plan. Getting the managers ready, so going to facilitate some manager enablement and training sessions to help them think through what does good look like the first 3 or 4 weeks of the internship. That's things like I'm going to ask them to connect daily with their new interns over the webcam, making that connection, making sure the intern has either like a mentor or buddy really assigned to their experience. So those managers get busy. Someone else on the team that would be excited to invest time in developing the intern and that can help build that connection and kind of launch their learning and their projects, help them with those technical problems. But then beyond that, I think week one, it's vital to still host that orientation. We always kind of offer a half-day in-person orientation, so we really moved all of those guest speakers and content to be virtual. We use Microsoft Teams as our platform, but Zoom is another great one out there. We're going to be using MS Teams day one to invite different guest speakers and talk about what to expect for the duration of internship, some tips on how to work virtually, but introducing them to the company, the culture, and kind of just knowing we're here to make this as awesome as we can, and we're going to make it interactive the best of our ability. So really offering, I think, at least 2 kind of intern-wide events per week is what has worked well for us in the past for in-person. So taking a look at those in-person events, which one can you switch to be virtual? What are some new ones that we haven't done in the past that could be virtual? So when I think about the social component, building that network of peers and community and camaraderie, maybe it's some virtual yoga sessions, it's trivia or Jeopardy night over MS Teams. Maybe we do some team building things. You have a scavenger hunt in your house and we're competing against each other. And then professional development activities. That's a huge part of our internship experience beyond just your day-to-day project work. We're able to offer things like doing an analysis on the DISC profile, so kind of figuring out how you relate to others. That can be done virtually. Also, too, we've got a session scheduled on things like navigating change. You're joining this company virtually. How do you adapt to this change? Partnering with our LinkedIn and social media team on building out your professional brand on your LinkedIn profile. That can be done virtually. So I'm finding that a lot of the content I did have built out in sessions can go virtual. There are some that won't be able to be done virtually, and we just kind of have to be okay with some things are out of our control.
And that's a fantastic point. I mean, because if I'm just thinking about it, if I can develop, my interns to get their professional competency skills and really flex those muscles, they're still getting the value out of that internship experience. And if I can teach my managers and enable them to really facilitate that relationship, then yeah, like there are certain challenges that just go away from that. I mean, specifically from a content standpoint, because I'm moving there too. Like I'm thinking about ways to really captivate an audience and deliver a lot of these trainings virtually. What are some advices or tips that you've gotten to make sure that everybody stays engaged? Because I don't want it to be super boring and everybody just has their videos off, but I don't want to be telling people to, turn their microphones off if they're not talking every 15 minutes. I want it to be engaging.
Yeah, that's a great point. Because you could easily tap out, right? You could turn your webcam off and not participate. So fortunate to have some really engaging guest speakers that we're going to have part of these sessions that are employees of the company. And I think limiting each session to 45 minutes over the webcam is the best practice that I've been researching. Often we get excited if you're a guest speaker, right? And you've got a lot of content developed and you're like, okay, I'm going for 60 minutes. But been doing some research that really after like 35, 40 minutes, you start to lose people over the webcam. And it's so different being at your computer versus at an in-person session. For whatever reason, your mind is focused in a different way. So I think that's definitely one good tip. But then preparing your guest speakers, whatever session they're presenting on, to let them know we want to make this fun and light. And this is a group of college students. So come up with some creative ways to get them engaged on their webcams, doing Q&A and having them participate. I know that Zoom has some like breakout chat sessions that you can use. So that would be a cool way to do some group activities even within a larger session.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I know. I think you can like have individual people or like, groups of smaller cohorts go into their own rooms, discuss, and then come back as well. So I kind of want to make sure I haven't missed anything yet so far because there's a lot of good stuff. So first, which I didn't even think about, is gathering a group of local, companies kind of in my area to discuss best practices. And then talking to my leadership team to really get the buy-in of making sure all the logistics and the housekeeping items are set for those interns to be successful. And then there's a smaller subset of that, what it seems like, to have managers and really enable those managers to make sure that they're giving those interns, or at least, what they think is a great experience. And then for the interns, make sure that you are also enabling them by building out content related to professional development skills, giving them and assigning them a buddy that they can go to that's not their manager, right? So they can have that informal relationship. And then I believe you mentioned like having like virtual sessions so that you can help them navigate through change, kind of pieces and ties into that content as well. And then making sure for the content, in order to be engaging, limited to about 45 minutes, because you start to lose people after that time. And I think we've all, been guilty of that, and create some engaging speakers and keep it lighthearted. So I've got lots of work to do. Anything that I might have missed from point A to present, point Z, maybe where we are?
I think the final thing is thinking through, intern programs are a pipeline to full-time opportunities. So making sure there's still that opportunity for managers to effectively evaluate performance and make decisions about full-time offers for those that are going into their senior year. So making sure managers feel like they can really evaluate them with that virtual relationship. How do you get creative on that? I think one component that we're going to incorporate is making sure final presentations can still happen. And that might be a smaller group that they're presenting to, but that's a huge component of that evaluation piece, is that end of the summer delivery of results.
Yeah, and I'm also thinking, as you said that, is I have to now think about my interns and teaching them and enabling them to deliver virtual presentations, because it might be a little bit different than doing it in person. But that is an excellent point, is to somehow go back to my managers and give them the space and the opportunity to still evaluate the intern. Because you're right, there's a reason why an internship program exists. And the crux of it, experience and all aside, it is the pipeline for future talent. Makes sense. Like I said, I've got lots of work to do. It seems like lots of recruiters, everybody is in the same boat. And I think something that you opened my eyes towards is exactly that point. Everybody is kind of now, because of this pandemic situation, more or less in the same setting. So relying on our counterparts, relying on these people to brainstorm and go to advice, something I'm going to hold myself accountable to do more. But thank you again for coming on. This is a lot of fun. I had lots of takeaways, lots of things to do. But anything else? Otherwise, I think we're good to go.
I think you got it all, Rashaf. We've got a lot to do over the next month, but I'm excited for the challenge, and I think you're going to do great.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right.